Welcome to Beyond Your Why podcast, where we go beyond just talking about your why and actually help you discover and then live your why. You see, we believe that knowing your why, that driving force behind every decision you make and every action you take, is the essential first step to really knowing yourself. It allows you to move forward faster and have a bigger impact. If you're already a fan of the show, then you know that every week we talk about one of the 9 whys, and then we introduce you to somebody with that why so you can see how their why is played out in their life. This show will be more powerful for you if you've already discovered your why. If you still need to do that, head over to whyinstitute.com and discover your why today. It'll only take you about 5 minutes. Now, let's meet today's guest.
This week, we're going to be talking about the why of contribute. To contribute to a greater cause, add value, have an impact in the lives of others. So if this is your why, then you want to be part of a greater cause, something that is bigger than yourself. You don't necessarily need to be the face of the cause, but you want to contribute in a meaningful way. You love to support others, and you relish successes that contribute to the greater good of the team. You see group victories as personal victories. You are often behind the scenes looking for ways to make the world better. You make a reliable and committed teammate, and you often act as the glue that holds everyone else together. You use your time, money, energy, resources, and connections to add value to other people and organizations. And so today I have a great guest for you. His name is Steve Mulver, and he is the founder and owner of Blue Mountain Business Coaching, a coaching and training firm that specializes in leading employees to become world-class. He's the author of the book Ignite, a blueprint to spark world-class performance in the workplace. His experiences come from owning 2 businesses himself and managing a nonprofit organization. Steve has developed a powerful insight into what it takes to win a leadership game. Steve began his training and coaching career when he served as a corporate trainer for a Fortune 100 insurance and securities firm, where he trained business building skills and techniques to agents and registered representatives. His innovative programs were instituted around the country, impacting 7,000 financial professionals. Before getting involved in the business, Steve spent close to a decade as a rabbi, both in America and abroad, in education and pastoral work. In those positions, he learned a lot about listening and understanding people. These skills have been a tremendous asset in helping business owners find ways to mold their businesses to their unique personality, strengths, and skill set. An award-winning speaker, Steve has spoken for Chase Bank, Century 21, Jackson National Life, McDonald's Management Team, the Entrepreneurs Network, and the Kennedy Glazer Marketing Group, just to name a few. Steve is heavily involved in his community as a board member of the local rabbinical school and a local synagogue, a past club president and area governor of Toastmasters, and a volunteer at a local school. When asked about his biggest accomplishment, Steve says, "While raising my 6 children, there was never a time when one of them wouldn't speak to me for over 3 days, even in their teenage years." Steve, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Gary. Happy to be here.
That was a mouthful. I thought I'm going to read the whole thing, though, because it was very pertinent to your story.
Yes.
So where do you live right now? Tell us a little bit about where you live currently.
I'm a suburb of Detroit called Southfield, just on the north side of Detroit.
Southfield. Okay. So let's go back in your life. Where were you born? Where did you grow up? What were you like growing up?
So I was born in Southfield.
Okay.
Now, I left for a while. I was away for about a little under 20 years, where I lived in different places around the world. But I was born probably 2.5 miles from my house today.
Okay. And what were you like growing up?
That's an interesting question. Yeah, I was pretty... I connected with people well. You know what I mean? To find areas where I could bring something to the table. I remember at very young ages, people commenting on that I was able to go to the kid in the class that was sitting in the back because he was a little bit too nervous about getting involved in the group, and going over and coax him out a little bit. That would be the type of thing that was pretty regular for me. finding ways to make things better, and that kind of, it's a little bit kind of the contribute idea.
Yep.
Contribute idea. When I first took the test at the Y, actually I've taken it twice, and contribute was the number one on both of them. The other two, I had challenge in both of them, and the third one was different in 2 times. But contribute was no question, hands down, the bigger thing, and that's played out in a lot of different ways.
Yeah. You always wanted to help.
Something like that, yeah. That's kind of, I would say, how can we make it better?
How can we make it better?
How can we get in there and find ways to do something that means something?
So what kinds of things were you into in high school?
So high school was interesting. I did high school in 3 years.
Okay.
I graduated at the end of my junior year. High school I wasn't one of the jocks, and I wasn't one of the thespians, so I didn't have any kind of group in the school that I kind of fit in. I was actually a lot of loner. I found things outside of school that I was active in and excited about. And again, it was kind of more group things, leadership roles and youth group and things like that were pretty common for me in high school. But it wasn't so much in school. School, I got along to get along. Actually, I believe it's funny. I wrote a whole section in my book about this. High school is one of the most difficult times of a person's life. And it's so funny because we expect people to go into high school and excel in everything. That's the only time in life we accept that. We don't take their individuality into account. We want to see 4.0 students to say they made it. When high school is really about kind of discovering where the places that you really can shine at. And very often, the guy who's great at math is not going to be great at English, and the guy who's great at English isn't going to be good at science, and so on and so forth. But we don't teach that to our kids. Instead, we take people who are socially awkward, who are having trouble fitting in, giving them a job to excel in everything with no place for them to find themselves. And that's how I experienced high school. It was like, it just was, I went there because I had to go there. I did what I had to do, and I got out of there. I wasn't a place that I was going to spend a lot of time. That's a rough period in people's life, and we have it all backwards.
I agree with you.
All right.
Yeah, I think most people would agree with you, except for maybe the ones that excel in something, and then that's they never stop living their high school days.
Well, that's really actually interesting. I came across interesting research during the book that people that were valedictorians in their high school go on to get above average jobs. They're in the upper income level of average jobs, but they're never leaders in anything.
Interesting.
And the reason is because they learned how to work the system well. That's how they became valedictorians. And they never stepped out of the system. And the real leaders, business leaders or thought leaders or in any movement whatsoever, go look at most of them, their school years were a wreck.
Yeah.
Because they were personal and they were their own person and they got out of it. And that wasn't the case. The valedictorians learned how to work within the system. So therefore, they never got to the point where they become big leaders in anything. And I just thought that was super interesting.
Yeah. Okay, so graduate from high school, off to college. Where'd you go to college?
I first I was actually at the University of Haifa. And then afterwards, I went to rabbinical school. And I was in rabbinical school from 1978, got married in 82, and stayed in school until 87.
Okay.
And so that's where most of my schooling was. That's a whole different world.
Question for you, Steve. At what point did you know you were going to go to rabbinical school?
I made that decision in my first year of school. That I
college?
Be there. Yeah. I made the first year that I really wanted to be there, and I went there. It's grueling. We started 7 o'clock in the morning, finished 10 o'clock at night, 5 days a week.
Wow.
Fridays, it's a half a day. But it's grueling. The time is grueling, but it's inspiring and uplifting and unbelievable. So,
what was the thing that told you, yep, I think I want to go to rabbinical school?
It was about clarifying more for me where I wanted to be, how I wanted to fit in the world. I'm an Orthodox Jew, and so getting more clarity in that, learning the jurisprudence and the systems better, learning the theology better. That was it.
Okay. So off to rabbinical school till 87. And it's interesting what you just said. Would you guess that most people understand how grueling rabbinical school is?
Only the people who've been there.
So, yeah.
Because it's also, what's interesting, it's not school per se that you go to get a degree. You go to increase your knowledge and your value and your own spiritual levels, and you get depth in the jurisprudence. And at some point, you make a decision, it's either time to go out to be a rabbinical leader or a rabbi, or you decide, okay, it's time to go out to work. And that's kind of was. I took my first job in 87. I was leading a nonprofit adult education organization, Jewish community. And that was, I had been 2 years in rabbinical school in Jerusalem after I got married, and then another 3 years in Amsterdam, Holland. Then I moved to Minneapolis, where I ran this organization for 4 years. Did another year with another organization in Los Angeles, and the year after that, I decided that it was time for me to get into the working world. I had 5.5 kids, and I needed to go from nonprofit to profit. And that's how I opened my first business.
And what was that?
Penny Saver. It was a advertising circular. It's pretty common in a lot of the country, where you ads for small businesses to go out. I was very excited about getting in the business and did not have the capital I needed to make it work. Worked at it for 3 years. Ended up having to close it down with a huge amount of debt. And then got in the insurance business based on an old student of mine, and did very well there until New York Life came and asked me to become a trainer for Southeastern Michigan.
Yes. And then are you doing that currently?
No. I left. Okay. I left that business in 2005.
Okay. So you were with New York Life through 2005, and then what happened? So
what happened is really interesting. New York Life, great company, great products, pretty good training, but they had one thing that I got to a point that I kind of differed with them. And they said any agent that comes in who's got the knowledge of what he has to do, the skill to do it, he can show that he can do it in a role play, and the desire to win, there's no reason he's not a successful agent. And I had scores of agents coming in that had the knowledge, could show that they could do it in a role play, were dying to be successful, and were dying on the vine. And that's because if the phone feels like it's 3,000 pounds, I don't care how much you're dying to be successful, you're not going to pick up the phone. And you're not going to do the work you had to do. So there was nothing happening in the company to help these people over the things that were getting in the way. And I started learning about that. I started learning about coaching. I started adding coaching. And the company and I basically decided that this wasn't really what they wanted. And so I decided to go on my own. I went back to being an agent. And I wanted, in the insurance and investment industry, if you want to open another business besides the one working for the company, you need to get the company's permission. And I wanted to open a coaching practice. Company said no. And so I said, guys, it's really been nice to meet you. I appreciate the time we had together. And I went on my own. It was a little bit scary because I didn't have a base or anything to work with. 3 of my original clients were guys in the financial service industry. They were wholesalers. One guy, we took his unit from 50 million to 100 million. One guy, he was 42 out of 52 in his zone, and he became number 2 that year. And the third guy never hit all of his bonuses in December, hit them all in September. So I was doing something right. And slowly it emerged and it got more to other kinds of businesses to get stuff done. And that brings us up to the practice I've been doing now since 2005.
And what's the name of your business now?
Blue Mountain Business Coaching.
And okay. So through the experiences that you had in running your own business, being part of a big organization, you learned some secrets that you share with people that's helped them do even better.
Yes.
how much of that came from being a rabbi?
There's a lot of things that came from being a rabbi, actually. Being able to listen to people is an unbelievable skill that most people never learn. Speaking to somebody, they're too busy thinking about what am I going to say next, as opposed to listening to what the person's really saying. And when you sit back and you can really listen, you have really incredible things start to happen. When you can listen and hear them and they feel heard and they feel understood, and then you give them a little bit of an idea, an insight, a thought of where they might be able to do things differently, and they're willing to do it, and you help create some type of accountability system. Really powerful. And people love it. And that's what happens.
So is there a secret or a technique or a process that you were taught on how to listen?
It was a lot of practice. Mark Twain once said has a great line. He says, success comes from experience. Success comes from making good decisions. And good decisions comes from experience. And experience comes from making bad decisions. And so it's a little bit of trial and error. You spend time and you see, well, that really something special happened there. I wonder what happened there. And you start seeing that your ability to really understand somebody else gives you an leg up. And now, honestly, the fact that I lived in Holland for 3 years was very instrumental in that, because in Holland, I was the odd guy out. You know what I mean? I was the guy that was not part of the regular society. So I had to stop for a minute and say, okay, let me put in perspective where somebody else is coming from that wasn't the same as me coming from Midwest America.
Yeah. So you had to learn those skills along the way.
Sure.
And are there other skills that you learned from being a rabbi that you've incorporated into your coaching?
I think there's a certain amount of looking at things in different ways, being able to notice things, being able to tweak things, being able to say, well, maybe that's not the right way. The studying jurisprudence of the Talmud is extremely sharpening on the mind. And so you're able to see things or ask things in a different way. It's very analytical. I will tell you another set of skills I really learned. It wasn't from the rabbiing so much as from coaching. Is I'm never afraid to bring up something that's important for a person to hear. I don't care how uncomfortable it is. One of the things that I've learned, it's funny, in the early days of coaching, if I would see something dramatic on somebody and want to tell them, I would hold back, because let's wait and see if they become a client. I don't want to ruin it. And that was wrong, because I wasn't serving them properly. Instead, I step right in. I serve my client, even if they're not a client yet. If they don't want to become a client, that's good news for me, because they wouldn't have made a good client. What I have found happens is when I ask that real question up front in the first meeting, that's usually more endearing to them. I've just found a way to do it that's very powerful. And what I say is, I have something really uncomfortable to share with you, and it's going to be uncomfortable for you to hear. It's now a good time. And when you ask that question, they say yes, they've invited you to come have a discussion. So you don't go in there like a sledgehammer or a bull in a china shop. You still try to be somewhat diplomatic with how you say it, but you bring up the real thing to them to think about, and they stop and they think about it, and change happens. Sometimes people do things, they don't even realize they're doing it. It's just become a habit for so long. And when you can, in a slow way, or an easy way, make it easy for them to make that change, magic happens.
Yeah, I love it. So for those of you that are listening, Steve's why, like we talked about, is to contribute to a greater cause, right? Add value, have an impact in the lives of others. How he does that is by making sense of the complex and challenging, solving problems. And ultimately, what he brings are outside the box solutions, not typical, not traditional. And how did that feel to you, Steve?
You mean when I saw the report from the Y, or just in general, how does that go in life?
How does that feel for you right now as we bring that up? Does that seem...
Yeah, I mean, that's really what it's all about, because, every single person is different. And when you have I love the story about the tailor, who a guy goes to pick up a suit from the tailor, and he tries in the suit, and he looks at the two arms, and he says, they're not the same length. The tailor says, well, you have to stand like this. He says, okay, I stand like this, but now look at the back. He said, well, you got to pull this back a little bit. And he said, okay, now that's wrong. And he goes like this. Tailor says, look, it fits perfect. And the guy's walking down the street like this. Two guys across the street look at him and say, look at that poor guy. And the other guy says, yeah, but he's got a great tailor. So what happens is we live in a world where everything is a tailor-made. This will fit you off the rack. Just take it. You don't even need an alteration. Nothing to do with you. Just go use my system. I'm the guru and I got it. And it's not really like that. It's not taking into account how you're different and what your things are. And I think that's really what it's all about. At least for sure, a coaching perspective, when we speak to people about what to do to get to the next level, to make things different, to do things differently, you got to take the whole situation into account. And if you take that whole situation into account, it's not going to be off the rack solution. Now, it might be the same solution other people have used, but that's not why. It's because that was the right solution for them.
So let's talk for a minute about the coaching that you do. And I assume you talk about this in your upcoming book, Ignite. So let's talk about that. Tell us of the title again, and what's the subtitle? And let's dive a little bit into that.
Yeah, the title of the book is Ignite, and the subtitle is Fueling World-Class Performance, Even If Your Employees Are Not Yet World-Class.
Important word you used there. There's one word in there that was very important.
Fueling? Yet. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Because everyone could have world-class employees. Here's the truth. The truth is, for the most, look, there are some lousy people in the world, but for the most part, people come and do a job. They want to do a good job. They want to be satisfied. They want to like what they're doing, and they want to do something that means something. And unfortunately, a lot of business owners have come to the conclusion or been taught, beatings will continue till morale gets better. And that's not the case. And one of the things about my book is I've come to the conclusion that the number one thing that causes somebody to be successful is confidence. And if their confidence is good, they can go into great things. Now, it's really an interesting catch-22 because there's a very big mistake in the world. They think confidence is something you get while you're sitting in your chair, humming Kumbaya, getting ready to go do something that's difficult. And the truth is, confidence comes after you went out and you did the thing that was difficult, and you get results from it. And so how do we help our employees, for that matter, our children or our students, increase their confidence by taking on challenges, taking rough action, uncomfortable action, and getting results so they become more confident, more powerful people? And the book is really, first section of the book is what is confidence, where does it come from? The second section of the book is what gets in the way, how do we lose it? Because every baby in the world is born confident. Did you ever see a baby try to learn to walk and falls down 1,000 times and he still gets up and keeps going until he finally learns it? If we were to learn how to walk when we're 20 years old, most of us would crawl into meetings today. And there'd be some guy that's running the show is the guy that pushed himself off and, powered through to be a walker. And so what happened? Why does everybody lose that confidence that every little baby has? And then finally, the third section of the book, which is the really powerful part, is what do you as a manager do to help your employee increase their confidence so they do something? So think of it this way. My vision for a company is when you have employees come in, you get to know them, and you go through some of the things that I speak about to get to know them and what they really need and want, get their buy-in. And they take upon themselves the challenge. And you're there rooting them and helping them and encouraging them when they take actions to make that challenge happen. They get results. And now you celebrate those results. What happens is these people get very excited and they're ready to go take on a new challenge. So now you have the system, and the whole company ends up working in that system. So if you think about it for a minute, you have a scenario where you have a company of everybody taking on things that are uncomfortable and difficult, and they do it once a quarter. And they're constantly increasing because of it. So how do you look at your employers that when you're doing that? How do you look at the other people in your business? How do you look at yourself when that's what your business is doing? And I believe that when businesses get the reputation that that's what they're doing for their employees, There's going to be a lot of employees standing out the door around the corner because they want all those personal soft benefits that are not money and not health care and not 401k, but it's about personal development.
I love that. So what I think I heard was, in order to develop confidence, help put people in challenging positions where they, stretch themselves and then encourage them along the way.
Exactly correct.
And when you encourage them, how do you encourage somebody when they're not getting the result that you want?
Great question. So let me back up one step first, if you don't mind, Gary. Yeah, that is, we have to understand something very fundamental. Courage and fear are not opposites. A lot of people think either you're courageous or you're fearful, you're not both. That's the biggest mistake in the world, because a person does not need courage unless he's fearful. If you're not fearful, there's no of course you're courageous. Big deal. That's not called courageous. That's called living life. When something gets difficult and scary and fearful, that's when it's time to put on the courage pants and go do what you have to do, even though the pants are wet, right? So that's the first thing is courage. The second thing is, there's a very important word you mentioned there, and that's encourage. The word encourage means to give somebody else some of your courage when they don't have enough. So somebody's trying to do something and they're getting a little bit freaked out because they're afraid, or they're not think they're going to do it. So if you can help them do that, then you're helping get it. Now, there's times that people are not going to might not be able to, and you need to bring the challenge down a little bit because it's too far for them to shoot for it this time. But very often, it's just a matter of somebody being there. One of the interesting things, if you go on YouTube and watch people that do bungee jumping for the first time, there's 10 guys around them. They're all going to do bungee jumping. This guy's doing it for the first time, and they start counting down. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, and finally at 1, he jumps. I believe that 50% of those people would never jump if they didn't have the other 9 guys rooting them on. That's what encourage is. And knowing that there's celebration, that when you finally do it, there's going to be people that are going to make a big deal about it. A lot of people think when somebody wins, you give them a compliment. So Johnny comes home with a 99 on his math test, and Dad says, "Johnny, good job." That's almost a compliment, let alone a celebration. But if Dad says, "Hey, Johnny, I know that you struggled in math for a long time. I saw the last couple of weeks you've been hitting the books and working really hard. And it paid off. You got a 99 on your test. I'm really proud to be your father. Can we go get some ice cream together to celebrate?" What does that do for the kid versus just, "Hey, good job, Johnny"? And so it's a 3-point thing. You have to inspire the challenge. Inspires are, again, a very important word, because most people think in business about motivating. And motivation means I want you to do things I want you to do for my reasons. And inspiration is I want you to do things that you want to do for your reasons. And the difference between those things. So now, if you have a manager or a business owner who is inspiring the challenges, encouraging the effort, and celebrating the results, you have an environment. It's very powerful to help people move along. Mm-hmm. Encouragement is not always. I would say that Lou Holtz was a great encourager. And normally, you think about encourage, you think about that soft, grandfatherly touch on the arm. But that wasn't who Lou Holtz was. And I have no question. 34 years of players, if you went to ask them, how would you describe Lou Holtz? Nobody, not one of them would say he's a nice old man. But if you ask a second follow-up question, did you ever see a softer side of coach? 100% would say, yeah, this time my dad got sick, he was there for me. Or this time, or that time, or the third time, whatever it was. They would be absolutely, I think you'd be surprised at how many places he was that soft guy. Yeah. So here's the same thing here. A guy takes on a challenge. So part of it is encouraging, just come on, you can do it. I know you can do it. Part of it is also, look, this is what you said you want to do. Is that true or not really? Let's create a little accountability and help them get over the stone, because they're increasing their own inner drive. Mm. Those are both true.
I know the title for your next book.
Yeah.
How to Encourage.
So really, that's what the whole third part of the book is about, is how do we make this all happen? The original title for the book was The Confidence Creator. The reason I changed it is because this book was written for business owners because of my business. And I realized that most business owners don't go to sleep at night thinking, how do I help my employees get more confidence? And so it wouldn't really hit the same way. But they do go to sleep at night wondering, how do they get better performance? And this is the way to better performance. I think I probably have a follow-up book on this called The Confidence Architect for Parents and Teachers.
Yeah.
For two-thirds of the book will be mostly the same. The third one will be, okay, now let's take this at kids and students as opposed to employees.
There's a lot to be said for knowing what to say.
100%.
Without knowing what to say, it's hard to say it and have confidence saying it. Have confidence encouraging when you're not sure exactly what to say. I mean, I can see myself struggling with that.
I think that depends a lot on the relationship. And somebody that you're not close with or you haven't developed a relationship, it's a lot harder than somebody you do, number one. Number two, I have in the appendix of the book, I have about 17 or 18 distinctions. And distinctions, I believe, are hugely important because you make a good distinction. It changes how you think and how you work. So, for example, one of my big distinctions is the difference between pleasing and serving. When I'm pleasing, I want people to like me. That's going to have me showing up in a certain way. When I'm serving, I'm not focused on me and how I'm feeling and how they're treating me. I'm focused on what's the very best thing for them, whether it feels good to me or not.
For them.
Yes. And when you get into serving and they realize you're in their corner rooting for them and what you're saying for them is to really help them, it's not difficult to figure out what to say. You might ask a question, you might hit a nerve, and they hit the ceiling and bring them back down the ceiling and say, okay, what was that all about?
Yeah. So you have a team member or an employee that has all the skills, all the talent, all the ability, but just doesn't seem to be getting it. How do you handle that? Because, I can think back to many situations along my career as a dentist and at the Y Institute where just the results were not happening. And I'm sure a big part of that had to be me, as the leader.
So the answer is yes and no. And in the insurance industry, for example, 25% of the people who go in make it. And the problem is they have set up the situation. This is, by the way, not just New York Life. This is all the companies. They speak a lot about wanting higher retention rates, but they don't because it would mess up their business model if they got them. That's number one. And number two is they compensate managers by how long the guy is sitting there. So if you got a guy coming on, a manager doesn't want to start prodding and doing things that could really help the person and let them stay on the vine until they die. Well, meanwhile, they've gone through their savings. Their wife is really ticked off at them. Their self-esteem is in the gutter. And instead of first month, okay, let's get the plan together and let's work. A second month, guys, not working. What do we have to do to make it work? Third month is still not working. And what? This is probably not the right business for you. And that's the way of serving them. Mm-hmm. And they get out. They still have their dignity, still have their family. They still have hopefully some savings left. They can go on and do something. But when you let them sit there for 9 months and the manager is trying to be pleasing because he wants them to love them, he's not trying to bring the real value to them. He's not, creating accountability for anything you need to go. So that guy's going to die in the vine. Whereas if you see it's not working, you got to bring it up and be kind. Again, in other words, things I use is between nice and kind. And what's the difference? I remember once I was I was a manager at New York Life and I went to the restroom and evidently I sneezed or something because there was some dirt on my tie. This real gregarious Italian guy comes over and he says, "Hey, Steve, you got some snot in your tie." And I looked down and it was very uncomfortable. And of course I went to clean it off and he says, I know it's uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable for me to tell you, but I care about you enough to tell you And I don't want to be one of those nice people that will see it but won't say anything and let another 1,000 people see it because I didn't care about it. And when you really care about somebody and, you have that, I'm going to even use the L word, the love word, because that is part of what it is. You really care about somebody, you want them to be successful, you're going to help them be successful. I would rather be a manager that took a guy in and helped him and pressed him hard till he really got it and created a beautiful income for his family and have really just stay away from me because I'm a rough guy, and to be this sweetheart that allowed him to dine on the vine. And that's really about pleasing and serving.
Yeah.
So when you get the distinction and you understand what you're really doing for the person. And again, I'm not going to say, this is what I need you to do. I'm going to say, what do you want to do? And let's make a program to get that happen. How much money do you want to make? What do you want to have your lifestyle look like? Let's find a way to make that happen inside the business so that you can grow and be what you want to be and who you want to be and be who you want to be to your family. And therefore, and then I never have awkward with what to say at that point. We had that discussion up front.
Yeah, that's awesome. Steve, I can tell your book's got a lot of great stuff in it that you've learned over the years, and it just kind of feels right. So if there are people that are, actually before this, what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given, or maybe the best piece of advice you've ever given?
That's a really hard one because there's so many things to pick from. But if I would say the number one that I would push to the top, it's done is better than perfect. Every time we try to do something, we want to get it perfect. And guess what? It's never perfect. And if you keep waiting till perfect to get it out, I don't care if it's you putting out, a new guy comes into the insurance business. The guy who's like, I got to get the pitch right. I got to get the pitch right. And I got to get the pitch right. And I can take a second guy that says, okay, got a good enough pitch. And he goes, knocks on 60 doors a day and says, listen, I sell life insurance. You don't want to buy any, do you? Which is about the worst pitch you could do. He'll make 2 sales a day in 60 doors. But each time he does it, the pitch will get better and the pitch will get better and the pitch will get better. And so really when it comes to output, it's almost to the point, and I'm a little careful in saying this because I don't want it to be misunderstood, quantity will surpass quality. Because if you're working on quality, there's a famous story I bring this down in the book also about somebody who was in the ceramics class. And he came in the first day of school and he split the 2 sides into side A and B. Side A, you have to work on 1 project for the year. You can make it as good as you can, as perfect. And the other one, you're going to be graded not on the project, but on the pounds of ceramic you produce. 50 pounds is an A, 40 pounds is a B, 30 pounds is a C, and so on. At the end of the year, he brought some judges in and they pulled the 10 best pieces for the judges to decide who was the best ceramics guy. And all 10 came from section B. Because they went and did it, and learned from it, and did it again, learned from it, did it again, and learned from it, did it again, and learned from it. And we do something I call the adult method of learning, which is if I try it twice or 3 times and it doesn't go perfectly, then I give up.
Really?
And you have to be lousy at anything before you're good. So understanding that it's good to be lousy because that's the only way you're going to ever get to good, and done is better than perfect, I think those are probably the most important lessons, because people kind of clam up and they close down because they're afraid that someone's going to say something that's going to look funny. It's not going to be great. It's not going to be perfect. When really it doesn't have to be. It's going to be you.
Yeah. So, Steve, if there are people that are listening that want to connect with you, want to work with you, want to learn more about your book, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
So LinkedIn is probably the best way. And they can either put my name in it or it's LinkedIn. I think it's /your-business-coach.
I don't even know if I pronounced your last name correctly, so you better spell it out for him.
Straight over, Lover.
Aha. I wasn't sure if it's lover or lover.
No problem. I get that all the time. And so LinkedIn's a great place. Anybody who would like to email me, it's steve@bluemountainbusinesscoaching.com. It's a long one. I'm really sorry I didn't think about that when I created it. bluemountainbusinesscoaching.com. And they can email there. It will be on Amazon.
And your special, who is it that you're wanting to connect with you?
So really anybody wants help in this area, but the people that I really serve from a business perspective is business owners or organizational managers that have teams that are not making it. So if you hear somebody say, I feel like I'm herding cats, or I don't know what I need to do to get my guys to perform, that's the guy that owns it.
Perfect. Steve, thank you so much for being here today. I enjoyed hearing all about this. Very enlightening. Look forward to seeing your book and staying in touch.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
I really hope you enjoyed today's episode and that through today's guest, you heard how important it is to know your why and how impactful it can be in your life and the lives of those around you. Be sure to head over to whyinstitute.com and discover your why today. Remember, the more you know about yourself, the more you'll know about others. I'm Dr. Gary Sanchez, and I'll see you on the next episode.